Hello and welcome to another Show Me. In this one we're going to be talking about the course of the internal carotid artery as it makes its way from the neck into the middle cranial fossa and then eventually contributing to the circle of Willis. We're going to start off by drawing the ascending part of the vessel in the neck, and in the neck we must remember that it's slightly dilated at its origin where we'd find the carotid sinus. It also travels inside the carotid sheath and it lies in front of the transverse processes of the upper three cervical vertebrae. The other key feature here is that it gives off no branches in the neck. Once it reaches the middle cranial fossa, it enters through a structure known as the Carotid Canal, and at this point it changes directions. We can draw it coming in this way, and I've drawn that in black, which was an accident. Go back and do that in red. So it travels this way, and in there it is inside the carotid canal. Not getting my colours right today. Here we go. So it's inside the carotid canal in there, and it travels a centimetre or so before it then enters into the middle cranial fossa, appearing to come through a foramen below, which is foramen lacerum. And if you remember, foramen lacerum is a bit of a dummy foramen in the sense that it's got a cartilage-filled plug, so nothing actually passes through it, but the carotid canal does open into the superior aspect of that foramen. So looking into the cranial cavity, it does appear that the internal carotid artery is coming through foramen lacerum, but of course it isn't. So immediately upon entering into the skull, the internal carotid artery takes a number of kind of twists and turns which are very characteristic as seen on an arteriogram. It goes something a bit like this, and this is known as the carotid siphon. So here we can draw a kind of line that represents its entry into the skull. So this is the base of the skull, BOS for base of skull, and inside there, this is the region where it's actually inside the cavernous sinus, so we expect to find venous blood surrounding it in chambers in this region in here, and this shape in here, this is the carotid siphon, so we put CS for carotid siphon there. As it comes out of the cavernous sinus, it's associated with the posterior and then the anterior clinoid process, and it has a close relationship around the sphenoid bone at this stage. And inside the cavernous sinus it would run quite closely to some cranial nerves, in particular the abducent nerve and the oculomotor nerve. So eventually it ascends again and eventually gives rise to its two terminal branches, which are the anterior cerebral artery and of course the middle cerebral artery. So that's the general course of it, but we must also now name some of its pre-terminal branches. First of all, number one, we've got what's known as a hypophyseal artery, and this particular branch is going off to the pituitary gland. We've got an ophthalmic artery, and of course this particular branch travels through the optic canal with the optic nerve, and eventually there will be end arteries that will go and travel with the optic nerve into the eye. Another key branch is called the anterior choroidal artery, and that supplies in part a number of structures, the optic tract, also the hippocampus. It travels to part of the choroid plexus of the lateral ventricle, which is the substance that produces CSF on the floor of that ventricle, and also travels to some deeper structures, including the all-important internal capsule and also parts of the basal ganglia as well. The last branch, which is of significance here, is the posterior communicating artery, and the posterior communicating artery passes backwards to eventually join with the posterior cerebral artery, which joins with the posterior circulation and eventually completes the circle of Willis. Okay, so there's a quick anatomical description of the course of the internal carotid artery and the 4 key branches. There are others, but there are 4 key pre-terminal branches that I think you should remember. Okay, see you again soon.